Welcome back to Path of Awakening. I'm Heather Ashley, and welcome to our final episode of this season. Take a deep breath with me. Inhale, exhale, because today we're bringing it all together. So we've explored, soul origins as well as higher dimensions, near-death experiences, as well as what happens beyond the physical life. But now it's time to ask the big question. Why did we come here in the first place? Why Earth? Why now? Let's talk about the soul's mission, the divine purpose behind our incarnations, and what it truly means to awaken. So, why do we choose, to reincarnate at all? Souls, they don't just fall into a body by accident. They don't. Before we incarnate, we choose this life. We agree to enter, this dense, emotional, complex earth realm to evolve. That's why people choose to incarnate to earth. Not just for ourselves, but for the collective, for love, for light, for remembrance. Earth is not a punishment, it's a training ground, basically. It's a school. A master class in polarity, light and shadow, pain and joy, fear and love, positive and negative. We come here to expand, to remember who we are, and to embody that remembrance even when we try to forget it, That contrast, that duality, it's part of the design. So, what are soul contracts and life planning? Well, every major relationship, every challenge, every turning point, there's usually a soul contract behind it. Before we're born, we meet with our soul family, our guides, as well as other higher beings. We outline the major themes of our life, like healing ancestrally, or healing ancestral wounds, activating gifts, balancing karma, or teaching through service. But we don't plan every little detail because we build in free will too. So when we face heartbreak or deep loss, it's not a punishment, rather than it's the catalyst for awakening. And that awakening is when, the mission begins to activate, So, what are soul contracts? Well, soul contracts, those are contracts that you have made, that your soul's made with other souls. So, the rise of the awakened soul. So, if you're listening to this podcast, you're not here by chance. Just know that. You are likely a star seed or an old soul, a light worker, or a frequency holder. Here to help raise the earth, the earth's vibrations, as well as to awaken others. And right now, we are in the middle of a massive planetary shift. Souls like you are waking up, they're remembering their divine origins, and you're reclaiming your power. You're healing generational patterns, speaking truth, and embodying a new way of being. This isn't just spiritual, it's revolutionary. And you are part of it. So embrace it. So, what is Christ consciousness then, or the collective consciousness? It's the frequency of unconditional love. That's the best way to say it, At the core of this mission, is something ancient and sacred, and that is Christ consciousness. Not a religion, not a person, but a state of being. Christ consciousness is the highest frequency of love, forgiveness, unity, and divine awareness. And it's what Jesus truly came here to teach us, not dogma, but divine remembrance. When we embody this consciousness, we live, from the heart. We see beyond ego and illusion and separation. We become a bridge between, heaven and earth, between spirit and form. That's what, that's the calling, that's the mission, that's the whole mission, is to reach this Christ consciousness. So what about reincarnation and the waiting room, between lives? That's what I call it anyways. I call it the waiting room. So how long do souls wait to reincarnate? Well, that depends on each soul. The truth is, time doesn't exist beyond this realm. You know, it really doesn't, not even in other dimensions or even other places. Time doesn't exist. This is the only place that exists. Some souls return quickly, to assist loved ones or to fulfill unfinished work. Others rest for what feels like centuries, in earth time, reviewing their lives or, integrating what they had learned. And, and in space, between lives, we often meet our guides again. We may review everything, not in judgment, but with pure understanding, rather. Um, the life review shows us, not just what we did, but also how we made other people feel and how our choices and stuff, how they affected others. We see the ripple effect of every choice, every act of love, and every moment of grace. And then we choose again. So, but not every time. Sometimes you do reincarnate, like, in the stars, like from, higher dimensions. It just depends on what's in your contract, what's laid out for you. So, why did we choose to come here, though? That's to remember and to feel it all, to grow, to awaken, to love more deeply than ever before. In other dimensions, they don't they don't show affection and love the way that we do here on earth. That's a big thing here for on earth. We choose earth not because it's easy, but because we're strong enough to hold the light here. So as this season closes, I want you guys to remember one thing. You are not lost and you are not behind. You're not broken. None of those things. You are on a mission. And your presence is making more of a difference than you could ever possibly imagine. So give yourself a break and, take a breath. Don't forget to be sure your notifications are turned on so that next season you will know when the new season starts. It won't be very long. I think I'm just going to take a break in between this season and next season and get right started on next season because it's going to be so amazing. I can't wait. It's going to be more enlightening than this season was. So if you thought this season was enlightening, then you definitely don't want to miss next season for sure, especially if you are starting your spiritual awakening. Thank you for walking this path with me. Thank you for choosing this life. And thank you for remembering who you are. Until next season, keep shining, soul family. And I will see you then. Love and light. Bye.